She stood barefoot on the greasy floor of his garage, her voice trembling as she asked, "Can I just sit here for a second?" Her shoes were torn, her shirt too thin for October, but what caught Mason off guard wasn't her broken appearance. It was the way she locked eyes with him and whispered, "I have to sing at school tomorrow, but I don't know how to face them." He had no idea who she was, no idea who her mother was. All he knew was she needed help, and what came next would turn both their lives upside down. The day had started like any other in Mason Carter's life, too early, too cold, and too broke to complain. The rattling clang of his garage door echoed down the cracked alleyway behind Rustwood High, where he ran his one-man mechanic shop. Oil-stained coveralls clung to him, and the scent of rust and gasoline clung even harder. His hands were already blackened with grease when the girl appeared in the doorway. She didn't knock. She didn't speak. She just stood there, arms wrapped around herself, shaking in the early morning chill. "You all right?" Mason asked, instinctively stepping back from the busted Camry he was patching up. His voice was gruff, but not unkind. She blinked, startled like she hadn't expected anyone to talk to her. Her lips trembled. "I'm fine. Just needed a place to sit for a minute. The school gates don't open until 7. Mason frowned. "You a student?" She nodded slowly, still hugging her arms. "Yeah, I go to Rustwood. I have a thing today. At assembly. They're making me sing. I didn't ask to. They picked me to humiliate me, I think." Something about the way she said it hit him like a wrench to the chest. "Come on in," he said, pulling over a beat-up folding chair. "This place ain't much, but it's warm. Got coffee, cheap kind, though." She walked in quietly and sat down, her eyes scanning the grease-streaked walls, the half-lit fluorescent bulbs, the rusted toolbox. She looked out of place. Not in the way rich girls do. She looked like someone who didn't belong anywhere. "I'm Mason," he said as he poured coffee into a plastic cup with a faint crack near the rim. "Ava. How old are you, Ava?" 16. "You look like you haven't eaten in a while." She looked down. "I skipped dinner last night. Didn't want to make my mom feel bad." Mason didn't press her, but the silence between them thickened. "You said they pick you to sing just to humiliate you," he asked finally. She nodded again, her hands wrapped around the warm cup. "The popular girls. The ones with voices like angels. They said I sing like a dying goat. But then they told the music teacher I volunteered. You gonna let him win?" Her eyes lifted to his. I don't know." Mason didn't speak for a moment. He reached over to an old stereo he used for background noise and flipped through the cassettes until he found one with a faded label, Soul Sound Classics. He slid it in, pressed play, and soft notes drifted out of the dust-covered speakers. "You know this one?" he asked. Ava listened. Her eyes widened slightly. She nodded. "Sing it." "What?" "Sing it. Right now. This place doesn't judge." She hesitated, then opened her mouth. The voice that came out wasn't perfect. It cracked at the edges. It was shy, trembling, but it had something raw, something unfiltered. Mason stopped what he was doing. He didn't breathe until she finished. "That," he said, "that's not a dying goat. That's someone who's got something to say and doesn't know it yet." A faint smile tugged at her lips. It was the first he'd seen. From that moment on, something shifted. Mason didn't know what made him care so quickly. Maybe it was the way her hands trembled, or the way she tried to hide her shame with silence. Or maybe it was because he saw too much of his little sister in her, the one he failed to save. "You coming back here after school?" he asked as she stood to leave. She nodded. "If it's okay. Kid, you've got a chair here anytime." That afternoon, the garage door slid open again, and this time Ava came running, tears in her eyes. "They laughed," she said, breathless, "even before I opened my mouth. But I sang anyway. I sang everything I had." And the whole auditorium went silent. Even the principal stood up. But after it was over, the girls cornered me in the hallway. They shoved me, called me garage girl, said I smell like oil now. Mason clenched his jaw. "You told anyone?" She shook her head. "What's the point?" He tossed the wrench onto the bench and stood. "Come on." "Where?" "We're getting you a real mic. A cheap one, but better than the school junk. And maybe some fries too. You're going to need energy if you're going to start turning heads." That night, at a roadside diner, Ava sang again, this time to a few half-interested truckers and one waitress who cried into her apron. Mason handed her a milkshake and nodded. You keep doing this. Watch what happens. Neither of them noticed the black car idling at the far end of the parking lot, or the woman inside it, watching them with wide eyes and trembling hands. 3 days passed like shifting winds. Ava kept coming back to the garage after school, her oversized backpack bouncing against her shoulder, her thin jacket barely holding off the cold. Mason would have warm food ready, leftovers, mostly, but always enough, and they'd sit on crates, legs swinging, talking about songs and dreams like neither of them lived in the real world. And for those few hours each day, it almost felt like Ava belonged somewhere. But the black car kept returning too. It was always parked across the alley. Tinted windows. Engine running. Just idling. Watching. Mason noticed it first. You see that car before? He asked one afternoon as Ava was tuning the old keyboard he'd rescued from a dumpster. She paused. No. What? It's been here 3 days in a row. Same spot. Same time. Her hands froze over the keys. Mason noticed. You know it. She swallowed. I'm not sure, but it feels familiar. That night, after Ava left, Mason didn't close the garage right away. Instead, he walked up to the car, wiping his hands on his ragged cloth. The window rolled down halfway. A woman sat inside, mid-40s, stunning, cold in a way that screamed money and distance. She wore a tailored pant and shirt combo, spotless white, not a wrinkle on her. Can I help you? Mason asked sharply. She tilted her head. No, but I think you've been helping someone who belongs to me. His eyes narrowed. What does that mean? I'm Ava's mother. Mason's chest tightened. She said her mom is alive, very much so, and watching. I didn't know where she went after school until I followed her. She's not in danger, Mason said calmly. If that's what you're implying. I know. That's why I didn't interfere. I just want to see it with my own eyes. Her fingers tapped her steering wheel. She looked away. My daughter's been slipping away from me. I thought throwing money at it would fix everything. But she disappeared emotionally long before she stepped foot in your garage. Mason didn't speak. The woman turned back to him, her voice tight. She's been different lately. Stronger. She argued with me last night. Actually stood her ground. That's new. She's finding her voice, Mason said. She always had it. She just never believed anyone wanted to hear it. The woman looked down. Do you have kids? I had a little sister once, Mason replied quietly. Didn't end well. The woman nodded slowly, like she understood more than she let on. Would you let me talk to her? Not now, but maybe at the right time. I won't stop you, Mason said, but it has to be her choice. She's not someone you control anymore. The woman's eyes glistened, but she wiped them fast. Thank you, Mr. Carter. Mason Carter. She nodded. I'm Elizabeth Hale. And with that, she drove off into the night. Back at the garage, Mason didn't mention the encounter to Ava. He figured if Elizabeth really wanted to make it right, she'd find her moment. But the next day, the storm hit. Not the weather, worse. The video. Some student had filmed Ava's song at the school assembly. Not the part where the girls mocked her, but the actual performance. Her raw, unpolished, beautiful voice cutting through the silence. They uploaded it to TikTok, then Instagram, then YouTube. In 24 hours, it had 1.2 million views. By the next morning, it had 5. Mason's shop phone wouldn't stop ringing. Journalists, talent scouts, morning talk shows, even Ellen. Ava, meanwhile, was curled up in his break room with a blanket over her head, panicking. They're going to find out I'm nobody, she whispered. They're going to dig up everything. That I'm poor. That my mom doesn't care. That I live in a 1-bedroom rental with 2 broken windows. Mason sat beside her. You're not nobody, Ava. You're the girl who walked into a grimy garage and lit up a stereo with her voice. But it's not real. It was a fluke. Then fluke it again. She looked up. I'm scared. You should be. That means it matters. The next day, Elizabeth Hale walked into the garage. Not in her car, not with bodyguards, but alone. Mason stood at the counter, half expecting this moment. Ava froze when she saw her. Mom. Elizabeth's face softened. I saw the video. Ava's throat tightened. Don't say anything. Just don't ruin this. Please. I came to say I'm proud of you. Ava's face cracked. You never came to my school events. You never even heard me hum around the house. I know. Elizabeth whispered. That's on me. I was always at some meeting, or flying out for another contract. But I see now all the things I missed. Ava stood there, unsure. I want to support you now, her mother said. No pressure. No control. Just can I help? Mason watched Ava step forward, not to hug her mother, but to hand her a piece of paper. It was a flyer. Then come to this. It's the school's winter talent showcase. No press. No cameras. Just be there. Elizabeth looked down at the paper like it weighed more than gold. I will, she said. And that's when things took a sharper turn. Ava was invited to perform a solo on the main stage at the county fair after a video went viral. But the same girls who had bullied her before, especially Lily Vaughn, daughter of a local city councilman, weren't ready to let her shine. They pulled a cruel trick. The night before the fair, they posted fake flyers all over school saying Ava's mom had paid for her to win the showcase, that she wasn't talented, just another rich kid with connections. They even spliced Mason's name into a doctored voicemail that sounded like he admitted to coaching her unfairly. When Ava walked onto the school grounds the next morning, whispers followed like shadows. Even the teachers looked confused. She ran straight to the garage, eyes rimmed red, the flyer clutched in her hand. I can't go on, she said. Everyone thinks I cheated, that I'm some fraud billionaire brat trying to buy attention. Mason grabbed a wrench and chucked it across the room. It clattered loudly. You're not a billionaire's brat, he said. You're Ava freaking Hale, who walked in here wearing shoes with holes and sang with everything she had. You don't owe them silence. You owe yourself that spotlight. She looked up, jaw trembling. You think they'd go this far if you weren't already winning? Mason added. She exhaled shakily. Then she nodded. The lights above the county fair stage were too bright, too raw. They burned into Ava's skin as if trying to strip away her resolve. Mason stood in the wings, arms crossed, watching her with the same calm strength he used when fixing busted engines or talking down cops who questioned his presence in rich neighborhoods. Ava took a breath that trembled in her chest. Then she stepped up to the mic. But before she could say a word, a sharp voice sliced through the fairground. That's the garage girl. Gasps. Lily Vaughn, in her rhinestone jacket and smug half-smile, stood just outside the ropes with a few other girls. Guess her mom paid for the spotlight, too. I mean, who really sings out of garage? The laughter wasn't loud, but it echoed like a slap. Mason stepped forward from the side, but Ava raised her hand. No. She turned to the mic, tapped it once. It squealed. Then she said, My name is Ava Hale. And no, my mother didn't buy me this stage. I didn't even know she'd show up today. Elizabeth, in the front row, flinched. Ava continued, voice gaining strength. You want to know where I've been? I've been singing in a garage, with oil on the floor and rust on the walls, where someone actually listened. Someone who didn't care what I wore, or how I sounded at first, or if my voice was cracked from crying the night before. The crowd grew still. Maybe I don't belong to your world of perfect clothes and perfect parents, she said, locking eyes with Lily. But I know what it feels like to have nothing and still give your everything. A beat of silence. Then she sang. It wasn't showy. It wasn't auto-tuned. It wasn't dressed up in backup dancers or flashing lights. It was just Ava, and a single spotlight, and a song that carried every ounce of pain, rage, strength, and hope she had held inside for 16 long years. The fairground didn't breathe. Even Mason had to swallow the lump in his throat. By the time she hit the final note, the entire space had fallen into a stunned, awed hush, until someone in the back started clapping. Then another. Then the crowd erupted. Thunderous applause. Lily and her friends faded into the background like smoke in the wind. Later that night, Ava sat on the hood of Mason's truck, eating curly fries and watching the fireworks overhead. She hadn't changed out of her stage clothes, still wearing her boots with a taped sole and the jacket Mason had given her on the first cold day they met. Elizabeth walked up slowly. Can I sit? Ava nodded. You were incredible. Ava looked down. Thank you. I saw the flyers. The rumors. I hired someone to find the source, Elizabeth said. They've already confessed. I'm pressing charges. Ava's eyes flickered. Don't. What? Don't press charges. I don't want their lives destroyed. Just let everyone see who they really are. Elizabeth stared at her, almost like seeing her daughter for the first time. You're stronger than I've ever been. Ava shrugged. I had help. Mason raised his milkshake from a few feet away. Damn right she did. Elizabeth smiled faintly. Mom, Ava said softly, If you want to be part of this part of me, don't just show up at the wins. Show up when I fall too. Elizabeth swallowed hard. I will. Promise. With everything I've got. 2 weeks later, a new headline ran through every major outlet. Garage girl with billionaire mother stuns America with real voice, real story. But Ava didn't care about headlines. What she cared about was the music room at Rustwood High, now refurbished with a small grant Elizabeth had anonymously donated, and a weekly open mic Mason helped host at the garage. Students who were too shy, too scared, too silenced came to sing, rap, read poetry, whatever they had buried inside. Ava coached them, encouraged them. Mason ran the cables, fixed broken guitars, kept the lights going. Kindness wasn't always loud. Sometimes it was just showing up, again and again, for someone who used to feel invisible. And Lily, she was suspended. But it wasn't the punishment that changed her. It was the note Ava left taped to her locker. You hurt me, but I hope you find your voice too. Ava, no bitterness, just truth. At the end of the semester, Elizabeth invited Mason to a private dinner at a mid-tier restaurant. Not luxury, not flashy, just calm. I owe you more than I can say, she said. You don't owe me anything, Mason replied. She did the hard part. You saved my daughter's life. I just gave her a place to sit. Elizabeth reached into her bag and slid over a thick manila envelope. Mason opened it and froze. It was an offer, a full facility upgrade, his own garage, his name on the sign, paid for entirely by the Hale Foundation, in honor of those who see others when the world doesn't. Mason looked up. You serious? She wanted to keep it a surprise, Elizabeth said. But knowing my daughter, she probably couldn't keep her mouth shut. That night, Mason stood outside his new garage. The sign gleamed in the moonlight. Mason's Garage, where you're always heard. And just beneath it, in honor of Ava Hale. 2 months after the county fair, Ava Hale was no longer just Garage Girl. She was trending everywhere. Her video crossed 30 million views. National talk shows invited her. Independent record labels offered contracts. Even a rep from The Voice called Mason's Garage directly, asking if she'd audition on the next season. But with all the light came shadows. It started subtly. Whispers at school, snide online comments, and gossip columns spinning stories like silk. Is Ava Hale just a rich girl with good PR? Billionaire's daughter goes poor for viral clout? Mason Carter, hero or hired coach? Mason tried to brush it off. He'd faced worse. But it wasn't just about him anymore. It was about her. One afternoon, Ava stormed into the garage and slammed a tablet down on his workbench. The screen showed an edited video of her first performance. Someone had stripped the audio and replaced it with auto-tune, then added text saying, "Proof Ava can't sing without studio magic." Her eyes were red. This is going viral. Again, but for the wrong reason. Mason didn't even look at the screen. You're letting them get to you. I'm tired, Mason. Tired of proving I'm real. Every time I open my mouth, someone tries to shut it with lies. He set down his wrench, took off his gloves. Then stop trying to prove. Just be. If you keep showing up, their noise fades. She didn't answer right away. Then she said softly, "What if I lose who I am in all this?" "You won't," Mason said. "Not if you remember where you came from." But Ava wasn't the only one being dragged into the spotlight. An online sleuth dug into Mason's past. Found out about the accident. The sister he'd lost. A fire. A failed rescue. A DUI from 10 years ago. Thrown out but never erased. The headlines wrote themselves. Garage mentor hiding a dark past. Is Ava's savior a danger in disguise? One morning, a reporter showed up outside the shop. "You got anything to say about the fire, Mr. Carter? About what really happened with your sister?" Mason didn't answer, just turned around and walked inside. He didn't know Ava had heard everything. She followed him in, voice tight. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because it's not your burden," he said quietly. "Wrong. It's part of who you are. And who I am now too." He looked at her, saw something fierce in her eyes. That night, she posted a video. Raw, unedited, shot on Mason's old phone. They want to talk about Mason Carter's past like it's shameful? Let's talk about it. He lost someone he loved. He tried to save her. He failed, and he's carried that pain ever since. But he didn't run from it. He built a life out of helping people like me. Broken people. People who just needed someone to listen. You want a villain? Go look somewhere else. You want a hero? He's right here, in the same garage he fixed me in. The video went viral in hours. But this time in the right way. Still, the fame machine didn't stop. Offers came in harder now. Big ones. Multi-year contracts. Co-branded apparel lines. International collaborations. Elizabeth brought in a lawyer and a manager. Ava was barely 17. Mason kept quiet through it all. Until one night, she showed him a contract. 2 years, she said. Europe. A tour. 50 cities. You want it? He asked. I don't know. You want my opinion? She looked at him, nodded. You'll lose pieces of yourself, he said honestly. You'll have fans, fame, glamour. But you'll also wake up some nights, not knowing who you're supposed to be. That spotlight feels warm, but it burns. Ava bit her lip. But what if I don't take it? What if this is my only shot? He leaned forward, voice low. If you sing because it saves your soul, not because it builds your brand, then you'll never run out of shots. She stared at the contract. Then slowly, she ripped in half. Elizabeth's jaw dropped. Ava. No, Ava said. Not like this. I want my voice. Not a schedule. Not a version of me they can sell. But the fallout was fast. The label threatened legal action. The manager leaked text messages. Ava's face started disappearing from magazine covers. Trending pages moved on to newer stories. The world spun fast. But Mason's garage never stopped. Ava started teaching weekly voice classes there, for free. Kids came from across the county. The old break room was turned into a music room. A former touring pianist offered to volunteer. Mason built a stage out of leftover wood. They called it the Found Sound Project. They didn't make money. They made meaning. And one day, a woman in a wheelchair rolled into the shop with her teenage son. She said, "You helped my daughter years ago. You don't know me, but she told me what you did." Mason blinked. "Your daughter?" She said you were the first person who ever said her voice mattered. He swallowed. "What's her name?" The woman smiled. "Rachel." Mason turned away quickly, nodding. "Thank you." Ava watched him from the doorway. "You okay?" she asked. He didn't answer. She walked over, rested her hand on his shoulder. "You did save her, you know." His throat tightened. He nodded once. And just like that, the weight of 10 years eased off his chest.